We eat 3 times a day. Every time we choose what to put in our mouths comes from a moment where we have chosen what to buy in the shop, and which shop, and from who, and tracing that relationship back to where it comes from. That's where we make those choices to save the planet.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview inspiring and influential guests who are making their mark on the world and contributing to the common good. Making your mark, big or small, is creating a legacy, and it's one of the proven ways we age with energy and joy. Zestful Aging podcast is my legacy. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker. Find out more at judybanker.com. And to find out more about this podcast, my web courses, and all my offerings, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, The Insider, where you're going to get behind the scenes looks at my interviews and other fun tidbits. Hi there. Spring has definitely sprung, and I'm seeing little purple crocuses popping up in my neighborhood. And to celebrate the season, I'm taking $20 off of my popular Zestful Aging web course. You will learn the tried and true ways to add zest and vitality to your life, and it comes with a booklet I made just for the course. It's all based on science and my 30 years as a psychotherapist. So hop on over to zestfulaging.com for more information and use the code SPRING2021. You will get $20 off the course, and it is going to be a great way to start the season. Now back to the show. Well, I've got my little loyal Jack Russell Sparky right by my side, as always. He's very tired today because I went on a hike yesterday, a place in the woods I've been hundreds of times, and we actually got lost because everything is snow covered. So he's sound asleep. And I am so excited for our interview today. We have a really special guest. She's a rock star in the world of food and podcasting, and she aims to understand food in a really interesting way. She gives us a whole new way to think about what we eat and our relationship to it. Her work is unique and fascinating. Gilly Smith is an award-winning food writer and podcaster who's been writing and making radio, television, and podcasts since the early 90s. She was an early adopter. Her books are mainly about the influence of culture of food in its various forms, including how to eat to save the planet. And we're really going to focus on that today. Her book, one of many, Taste and the TV Chef, won the 2020 Gourmand Award for Best UK Food Writing. And I'm so excited to welcome Gilly Smith to the program today.
Thanks very much. What a lovely introduction.
So great to speak with you. But before we get into food and planet, I have to start with your recent interview with Ira Glass. And I think you knew I was going to ask you about that. There were a lot of clues. And you said in one of your episodes that you asked him a question he had never been asked before. And as a podcaster who really values that, tell me about your interview and what it was like to hear that you asked him something that he really had to think about.
I did. And, when you're editing, I do everything myself with the podcast, and I edit it myself. And I really thought, shall I keep that very long silence of his in where he goes and he repeats the question? And I didn't. Although I might go back and I might re-edit it because it hasn't actually gone out yet. But it's really interesting. It's one of those glorious moments where you think, God, this God of radio and podcasting really hasn't been asked this before. And I'll tell you what it was. Actually, there were a few. The main one was money. he was telling me, we were talking about his legacy in podcasting, and basically everyone I've ever talked to has always said they podcast because of Ira Glass and This American Life and Serial. And in the UK in particular, Serial really did kickstart or jump-started podcasting. It was sort of flailing. It had started and stopped and started and stopped. And then Serial came out in 2014 and just everyone was like, oh my God, I want to make this. I can do this. Yeah. So we were talking about how he got to where he is and how he creates that amount of amazing material. And of course, the answer is he has a lot of really, really excellent people and he has a lot of resources. And I said to him, you know, the thing that keeps coming up again and again as you're talking to me, and the word that keeps coming up to me is money. And he went, money? And he said, what do you, I don't know what you mean. And I said, because time equals money, people equals money. Podcasters do not normally get a lot of money. And everyone always kind of hails you as the king of podcasting, but actually there's a huge difference between what you do and what podcasters do. And there is just no level playing field unless you're brought up in this country by BBC Sounds, for example, and then you're given a budget to make that kind of wonderful programming. And, you know, I'm talking to people now about working with producers, and that means, gosh, another pair of ears for a start, but another pair of hands. You know, I do everything. I have done everything myself for 4 years. And even when I was working with some of the big brand podcasts, you know, I didn't get paid a huge amount of money. Unlike, you know, the real American podcasts, which now do come from a very different world. So there was that, but there are a few others as well. So the interview's going out on How to Grow a Pod in a couple of weeks. And it was really interesting because, you know, the thing about Ira Glass, as you'll know, and even if you've never met him, everybody who's ever listened to Ira Glass will know that he is seriously generous. He is seriously interested. You know, he was really interested in what I was telling him about what the BBC Sounds output was and how the style of This American Life has been copied over and over again and done very well by British producers in BBC Sounds. And he was very interested to know what they were and to listen and, you know, and engage. You know, I was very impressed with him. I think he sounds like a really lovely man. It was a total joy, but you know, really embarrassingly, actually, just before he was one of my very first interviewees for the book, which I wrote a book about podcasting, and the How to Grow a Pod is the podcast of the book with all the uncut interviews, almost uncut. And to my horror, I wasn't wearing headphones. He was in this gloriously soundproofed office using a beautiful microphone. And I was just using my normal microphone. No headphones.
Dear.
No clean feed. I was sitting in my kitchen. You never sit in a kitchen. You know, all the things that I know now. So it's hilarious listening to the difference between his sound, beautiful,
the professional. Yeah, I just have a really quick story about Ira Glass that I think you will appreciate. He came to Syracuse University very pre-COVID, and it was very hard to get in to see him, of course. And he started the show in total darkness. And he comes on, you hear him come on the stage, everything, the lights are completely turned off, and he starts the whole program in darkness and say, you only hear my voice. As a podcaster, you only hear my voice. This is what a podcast is, and it's just the intimacy of kind of being in the dark with this other person you can't see. Yeah. And then he talked about the quality of the relationship, what it feels like, and then eventually he put the lights on and he was sitting at a very simple table, just himself, talking about it. It was such a dramatic way to make the point.
Interestingly, that's how we started as well.
Oh!
Yeah, I mean, not in the dark. We were talking about using Zoom, and he told me a story of one of his producers who doesn't use Zoom for that purpose. She only wants to hear the voice of the person who she's interviewing because she wants to use her imagination to create the story.
Isn't that fascinating? It's like reading a book and then seeing the movie, and somehow it's not as rich, even if it's well produced.
Yeah. It's a
Isn't that
relationship between the
fascinating?
inside of your head and the inside of his head.
Oh, what a beautiful, that's such a beautiful quote. And in my book, and I talk about, that's not yet published, but Not Just Chatting, How to Become a Master Podcast Interviewer. It's about an emotional connection, and the words almost don't matter. It's the sound of the words, and the research shows it's actually the sounds, and people can make out enough of the meaning just by the tone of your voice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. God, we could talk about this for ages.
I know. So let's get to one of your specialties, which is how we look at food, how we look at the planet, and our relationship to everything we consume. Talk to me about that. What's your philosophy? What have you learned? And what do we need to know about that?
Well, we are living in a climate emergency, and we're daydreaming, sleepwalking, whatever analogy you want to use, into an absolute disaster. And way back when I was doing the Delicious podcast, which was my first podcast back in 2016, I interviewed the global CEO of Compassion in World Farming. And he said something that really knocked me for six. He said, we have the opportunity to save the planet 3 times a day. We eat 3 times a day. Every time we choose what to put in our mouths comes from a moment where we have chosen what to buy in the shop, and which shop, and from who, and tracing that relationship back to where it comes from. That's where we make those choices to save the planet. If we buy, we call it factory farmed food, intensively farmed food, chickens that are kept in huge, great factories, pigs that never see the light of day, animals who are terribly badly treated, or just kept indoors, which is treating them really badly. We are losing our connection with the food in our mouths. That's not delicious. That tastes of pain. That tastes of torture, actually. The idea of eating bacon that comes from a pig that's just been kept in a farm, a factory farm all the time, or a chicken that's been, fast growing through hormones, that its own legs are broken by the time it is actually slaughtered because it's too heavy for its own body, because it's been grown too fast. I don't want to taste that. So there's the high welfare issue. And so he was talking about the high welfare issue. And then I started doing a lot. That really, 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 I'm a big animal lover, but that really resonated with me. He wasn't he does do a lot. Compassion World Farming does a lot about the impact on the climate now. But at that particular time, it was much more about high welfare. And I started thinking about, how we source those kind of choices that we make. And I started looking at the impact of food production on the planet, just at the time when we were starting to think about a real climate emergency. And it was undeniable. The biggest carbon footprint is food production. More than anything.
That's amazing, because most of us, I think, would look at cars and factory, outputs.
Yeah.
And so this is really important for us to pay attention to.
And the most important thing is that, a lot of people don't fly. A lot of people don't drive cars. Everybody eats. And everybody eats about 3 times a day, if you're lucky. But, the work I do, everything I do is about that. So I do Cooking the Books, where I speak to A-lister food writers. And every single conversation I have is somehow connected to how to eat to save the planet. So I've just done today an interview with Theo Randall, who's a huge, top chef in London's Intercontinental Hotel. It's the kind of place that if you've got a lot of money, you'll go and eat there and taste London's gastro scene. And we were talking about sourcing, and I said, but we were talking about his book, The Italian Deli Kitchen, the Italian Deli Cookbook. And he loves Italy, and we were talking about his connection with Italy. And I was saying, but, actually that's not local or seasonal, which we know is a key to net zeroing up your carbon footprint if you're buying local seasonal foods, even in the hungry gap, which we're in right now, where there's barely any food that's being produced in Britain. You're flying food in. And so you have to think about, do you really need to cook with aubergines and tomatoes right now? Do you, and he said, well, I source all my fish locally, for example. Yeah, absolutely. And he does absolutely what he does. But, I kind of, to use a cooking metaphor, I really do grill these people. So I really kind of get them to really think about it. And they're all on the same page. And I've, most of them are leading the field in it. Dan Barber, for example, God, there's no one who knows more about this than Dan Barber. And he will use his influence at the G9, the Chefs Summit, where there's only 9 top chefs in the world. And I think that as a food journalist, it's up to me to do the little bit that I can for my audience, my readership, all the people I speak to. That's not in any way the kind of audiences that people like Dan Barber will speak to. But I just don't see any point in doing it if you don't do it properly. There's no point in talking about food unless you're talking about it in terms of how to make more conscious choices.
So it's not for you as a foodie and a gourmand and all this, it just isn't enough to say what's the perfect pairing with this wine.
No. No. I want to know about the sourcing of the wines. I want to know about the organic soil. I want to know about the terroir. I want to know about the relationship between the vineyard owners and the immigrants who work for them. I want to make sure that there's food justice. I want that, for me, I will taste food injustice in that wine, and I want everyone to. Because that's the only way that people will care enough to make sure that those Mexican migrants are paid properly.
And we hear about in the U.S. and California the hierarchy of the berry pickers. Yeah. Which berries folks are treated better? Are you picking strawberries? Are you picking raspberries? What's that like? Is it safe? Are they exposed to pesticides? Yeah. Is there violence? I mean, it just goes on and on. Yeah. It's almost as if every social problem is wrapped up in this.
It really is. And you see, that's why it's so important, because we can all change that if we become conscious of it. And so I have an opportunity to tell that story in all the podcasts I make. And for all those different audiences joined up, that would make lots and lots and lots of people. I talk to people on other podcasts. I talk to you. I'm talking to 93 countries you're in. People will hear this and maybe they'll go, oh my God, yes, of course I care. I'd never really thought about it like that. I'm going to think again.
So there's no such thing as cheap food.
There is no such thing as cheap food. Sadly, it's all hidden costs. Someone somewhere is getting the rap. Whether it's an animal, whether it's the planet, whether it's, think about the impact of the factory farms on putting the effluent of the chickens, for example, into the rivers. That kills all the fish, that kills the ecosystem, and the impact on that is just enormous. So it's a kinder, slower, simpler way of eating that I'm proposing. There's a wonderful phrase, shake the hand that feeds. Get to know the farmer or the fisherman or the butcher, or get to know where your food comes from. It's a lovely relationship. It opens it up. There's a wonderful piece in Dan Barber's book where he's talking to this Spanish farmer about making foie gras. It's about ethical foie gras. And it's a wonderful story. And he brings him over to Blue Hill, and the farmer's saying, oh my God, I saw this queue of people going through to a drive-through burger joint. And he said, they reminded me of the factory farms on the way to slaughter. They're all sitting in their cars, inching forward. They're not talking to each other. They're just looking out the window. Nobody's talking. Nobody's moving very fast at all until they get to the point where they reach out and they get the burger and they move on. And that, he said, was like a conveyor belt. And I thought, wow, that's so powerful. That is such a powerful image. We've become such machines. We've forgotten how to think. And so many people listening to this will be thinking, oh my God, that's me. And of course it was me at one point. And, I'm sure that we've all been there where we've just haven't even thought about what's under that shrink wrap plastic. Why would you buy something that you don't know anything about and then eat it.
Yeah, it's the most intimate relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it can be so glorious.
Oh, I know. I mean, we're in upstate New York and it snows here for 6 months out of the year. But boy, when that garden is producing, it's like heaven on earth.
Yeah.
That lettuce that comes out of that garden is, there's no comparison to,
Absolutely.
And we have beautiful grocery stores here. We have Wegmans, for goodness sake. Boy, it's like a different animal.
Yeah. And of course, everybody can. I mean, I do a lot of work for the Food Foundation where I'm dealing with child food poverty. I've spent the day today cutting a documentary about child food poverty and food banks. And you might say, well, this is a very sort of bourgeois conversation. That this is only about. And I did say that to Trina Hahnemann, who's a Danish activist chef. And she said, yeah, people always say that from the UK. It's because your social system is so skewed. She says we have to start by making sure that there's enough jobs for people to have enough money to be able to feed everyone. And you just think, oh God, there's literally no way that you can avoid this argument. It is absolutely about feed people properly so that they can be healthy enough to be happy enough to care about the things that matter. When I was talking to a 16-year-old who was suffering from, just terrible food poverty, and I was interviewing her for the Food Foundation about a year and a half ago, before lockdown. And I took her out, it was her birthday, and I took her to some awful bar that she wanted to go to for and I was looking at the menu and I was thinking, oh God, I can't talk about climate change to her. I know how she lives. She only eats frozen foods. I can't have this conversation with her. Of course I can have that conversation with her, but it would be difficult until she has an option. And she doesn't have an option because we don't make sure that people have access to jobs, and we don't have access to good, fresh food.
Hey, lovely listeners, I have something really special to share with you. I recently interviewed Dr. Elise Bailu, who is the founder of Mindfulness in May. Every May, thousands of people worldwide join the program featuring the world's best experts and build mental resilience through committing to 10 minutes of meditation per day, while also raising funds to address the world's most urgent global issues. Over the last 8 years, Mindful in May has taught over 40,000 people to meditate while raising $800,000 to bring clean, safe drinking water to the developing world. Well, I'm going to give out 5 free registrations for Mindful in May to the listeners of Zestful Aging who write the most descriptive and original 5-star review of Zestful Aging on whatever platform you use to listen. And after you rate the show, please copy and paste your review and send it to me at zestfulaging.com with instructions on how to contact you. The contest ends April 30th. And I'll be joining the program in May, and I can't wait. And please check out mindfulinmay.org. It's really special. Look for Elise Bailu's episode coming soon. Now, back to the show. You know what's interesting, too, as a psychotherapist, I'm reading and interviewing people who, in fact, they're coming up, 2 scientists in Canada who are putting out the first book on really robust research about micronutrients and how they influence mental health. And so it's not even just, it just goes on and on and on, the levels at which this is so important for our society, that when you have depleted soils, you can't make a healthy brain.
Exactly. And we have depleted soils because of pesticides in the soils. And pesticides are about more efficient, faster farming. It's capitalism. It's making more money and doing less
shorter
work.
Time.
Yeah. And you just think, well, where's the purpose? Where's the fulfillment? There's a wonderful book called Citopia written by Carolyn Steele, which made me cry just before Christmas. She's on my Cooking the Books podcast if people don't want to read a huge, great book. I mean, it's wonderful, but
it's
it
called
does...
say it again, Sitopia?
Yeah, she made the word up. It means food place, from sitos and topos, the two Greek words meaning food place. And it's a vision of, well, it's a story of how we lost our connection with food. And a lot of it has to do with speeding things up, not having any time, the time poor narrative and all that sort of stuff, and just stopping and looking at the impact of that. And climate change is Mother Nature's way of saying, hold my beer. I'm going in. I'll sort this.
And she always bats last.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So where do you see this now? I mean, COVID makes it so complicated in some ways, but maybe more clear in others. Are we on the right path? Are we making progress here?
Well, the documentary I was making today is about how COVID has revealed the gaps in the food system in the UK, although I'm interviewing somebody tomorrow in the US about the place of food banks and the tax breaks that your corporates are being given by I don't know which government actually, to donate food into food banks to basically absolve the government of the responsibility of looking after the poorest people in America. But I can't imagine Biden's had time to do that, so I imagine it's the other guy.
Whose name will remain. Yeah, let's not use his name.
Let's just say the other guy.
Sully our conversation.
But, what COVID has revealed is stuff that we can't ever ignore again. It's shown the real gaps in the system, and that gives us a real opportunity to plug those gaps and to make sure that we do unravel the whole lot now and have a look at what we can do. And I'm a hugely positive person, and I work with the Food Foundation, which is also incredibly positive, and there are lots of ways of doing this. It's very simple. I mean, in terms of, well, there's the social justice, there's, getting people jobs, getting people enough money to feed their own families. That's bottom line. But in terms of eating, you said yourself, it's about picking stuff from your raised beds. You don't need to grow very much. My daughter and her boyfriend, they grow. They haven't even got a yard, and they cook things. They grow things in jars, and they take such huge pleasure about growing chilies and things like that. But they grow little salads and all sorts of stuff, and anybody can do that on a window box. I know that it's not a priority if you are in grinding poverty, and that's what we have to deal with. But for people like you and me, it's about the ratio between meat and vegetarian foods is 80 to 20 vegetarian to meat, meat stroke fish. If you eat meat at all, I do, because I do believe in supporting farmers, high welfare farmers, because we need those animals on the land, because we need to get away from pesticides, and we need that. There's a lot of work that the high welfare animals can do to replete the soil.
And when you say high welfare, I'm not familiar with that term.
So it's extensive farming. Animals, oh my God, it's just so obvious. I almost want to cry to say it's actually putting animals outside eating grass. I mean, can you believe that I'm actually having to tell you that? It's just crazy. It's about proper farming. It's about remembering what farmers do, what farmers love, and their relationship with the land. They are environmentalists. They are the keepers and the stewards of the land. They'll do all the stuff, the keeping the birds in the hedgerows. They'll keep the land in the way that they need to be, so that the birds and the butterflies and the bees and the insects come back. We haven't got any insects in the soil. It's a madness.
Are they still using Roundup in the UK?
No, I think that has been banned
Finally.
now.
But it is not banned here.
Is it not?
No.
Wow, that's extraordinary. But most farmers, they will use many, many different pesticides. There's a whole industry. It's capitalism again. There's a whole industry that will work with farmers to say, okay, so you want this particular kind of corn. Okay, well, we'll give you this pesticide for this bug. We'll give you this pesticide for that bug. Capitalism also has the answer. I mean, I haven't read Bill Gates's book yet, and I hear that it's there's a lot of contentious stuff in it. But actually, one thing that he's right about is that there will be a massive green economy that will have to come out of this climate emergency. People will come up with answers, and it will be driven by the need to make money out of it. So, bring it on.
So for those of us who want to do better and who are already sold on this, but are also buying foods that are, we don't know the origin and all of this, what are the first steps? You talked about 80-20, but is there anything else, other guiding principles that might help people start being more aware?
Yeah. I mean, local, seasonal, 80-20, that kind of covers it. It kind of covers it. Buy from your local farmers, buy within the season. So that means right now I'm buying a lot of cabbage, a lot of kale.
And squashes, right?
Squashes, exactly. Squash. And, I do buy rice. I do buy pasta. I do buy that stuff. But, most of the stuff is coming from the land around me.
I see. And so you're talking about, for us and for many people, is making friends with the farmer's market.
Yeah. Absolutely. Or going to the farm gate. If you live anywhere near a farm, go and see what they've got. But get yourself a veg box. That's what we do. We get it sent to the house every week. And, that gives the farmers, a reliable income. That means that they can grow the stuff that they're encouraged to grow the stuff that we need to be eating right now. You can't have a local seasonal food culture unless you're supporting the farmers to create that stuff.
That makes so much sense. It's a system. It's a complex system. It's not just like, eat more, grains or something. No,
not at all. It's really not. It's just about think a bit more. It's not stuff that we don't know. It's how life used to be in many ways. The farmer looks after the animals on the land. We need the animals on the land. We don't need them in great big warehouses. That's simply to put a lot more meat out into the food chain that we just don't need to eat. So if you take meat right down to 20% of your diet,
I see.
Just eat one, really lovely piece of lamb once a month. That's a treat. That's how people used to eat in the old days. And then don't throw things away. That's the other important principle. Don't waste. Waste is huge. Greenhouse gases that come out of waste, and they're absolutely enormous. We throw away half of what we buy. And you don't need to do that. You buy locally, seasonally, from your farmer, from your veg box, and then learn to cook again. Make things out the back of the fridge. I love to do that.
Do you have, and this may be a silly question because I'm sure this exists, because of back a long time ago, there were diets that were, more macro, looking at more local and helping with allergies and all this stuff. There must be cookbooks for regions that help with, hey, there's going to be a lot of kale. What can I make with kale? I don't want to have every day the same kale dish. There must be local and regional cookbooks that look at that.
Yeah, well, you see, we've got a very different idea of what regional means. We're a tiny little country. So there's, right. Kale in Scotland, kale in Cornwall.
Okay. So it's different, of course, in the U.S. because we're growing such different foods. Yes, that's fascinating. Yeah. What's it like on a personal level, Gilly, for you to be with people in your interactions, business, you have tons of stuff going out, you're a producer, all this stuff, and people are just not that interested. And maybe you have to, pre-COVID, you go out for a meal and they just are clueless and they order a big porterhouse. And how is there a way to reconcile that for you, or are they just not invited into your world?
Do you know what? Actually, there's such a big movement here now. I think a couple of years ago that might have been the case, but there's a huge movement. My book Taste and the TV Chef really tells the story of how TV taught Britain to eat, and that tells the last 30 years, really. We've moved on enormously. So it's kind of not done. It's not okay to eat meat that would have come from a factory farm.
It's not cool anymore.
It's not cool. And that is basically what I wrote about in the book. When you make something not cool, like Jamie Oliver did, and that's the kind of where the start point with mine, cook like Jamie and you can have everything that Jamie has. Cool girlfriend, cool friends, and a really nice lifestyle. It's the same deal. It's how smoking stopped. Yes. It's not cool.
It's not fashionable anymore, and nobody's going to want to play with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's as simple as that. So, would you really, invite people over to your house and cook them something out of a shrink wrap package from, the supermarket? You just wouldn't, would you? Mm-hmm. I mean, or heat something up from a microwave. I mean, that's not what you want to do.
In a styrofoam bowl.
Yeah, exactly. You just wouldn't. You want to feed people. You might want to show off, but you want to feed people probably. And it's just not cool.
I see. So that's, we can really influence people through what's socially acceptable.
Yeah. That's it.
And use that as leverage.
Yeah. And so it's up to people like you and me to be the game changers. I would never shame anyone about their food. I would never say, where do you think that food came from? I wouldn't do that in the moment. But I'm pretty out there. I don't mince my words.
I know what to expect. Did you follow the show Portlandia ever?
No.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
It was it was a little while ago. There's a comedian now, and his name will come to me. But they had this little piece, this little bit about getting to know the chicken, right? So they really want to get to know the chicken, and they know his name, and then they finally go and they meet his friends at the farm, and it's just something that becomes absolutely ridiculous and turns into a cult. But it really shows that this is what's on people's minds, that we are starting to wonder, where did this chicken come from, and what was his life like?
Yeah. Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Things are changing and they have to change. But, we did talk a lot about sort of social justice and the social system, and that has to change very quickly now. And I think that COVID will help that change, because it's not people like you and me. We're probably conscious enough, middle class, middle life, particularly people who, read the papers, the NPR generation, as you called us. If we're not doing it right now, we can change that really quickly. But unfortunately, that's not the case for most people in this country and in your country. Mm-hmm. They are dealing with things that do not prioritize, conscious consumption.
That's right. Oh my goodness, there's so much to think about.
It's fascinating, but
it is so fascinating.
But also, just to remember, and Dan Barber says this as well. Just let's remember that it has to be delicious. And if you just remind yourself that it's not a weighty, terrifying, awful thing, it's about the best taste in the world. It's about pleasure, and it's not about just your pleasure, but it's about the pleasure of the farmer. It's the pleasure of all those bugs and bees and butterflies and the animals on the land having wonderful lives. It's about pleasure and deliciousness.
And there's a harmony that comes to mind, that it's really harmonious.
Yeah. And slow, and instead of bolting down your food on the run and not really thinking about what it's doing for you. Yeah, exactly. And not thinking about the impact it has on your gut, for example, or your skin or your hair or anything. It doesn't have any relationship with you. And then you compare that with, oh my God, it's like it's February here and it's cold outside, but spring is coming. So imagine sitting outside in a wonderful Italian, marketplace and sharing a table with a whole bunch of friends for hours and hours and hours on end, having taken the train because we're not flying anymore. And, sharing a number of bottles of locally produced wine, which would be amazingly delicious because they come from around the corner. That is just so preferable to eating on the run and just having no connection and just being like those guys in the car that Dan Barber describes in the book.
Yes. It's funny because when I travel pre-COVID, of course, is one of the things that I love to do is go to the local farmers markets.
Of course.
Because you get to really get a sense of who the people are and what, it's going to be different than New York. And there's actually a documentary. It's not a new one, but it goes through and introduces you to farmers markets around the U.S.
Okay.
And I thought, what a fun idea it would be to set out to travel and say, these are the 10 farmers markets I have to experience.
Well, that's very funny.
List.
That is just what I'm about to do. But not in the US, but around Europe. That's one of my next projects. Yeah, called The Market. Coming soon.
And so your plan is to go and just to see and smell and get little tastes?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Well, I started, one of the first things I did, when I was at Delicious, I was always out and about doing this, but I also did the Borough Market podcast, which many of your listeners will know as the farmers market in London. I mean, it is a destination market. It's huge. And I did the stories behind the stalls. So I was getting those wonderful stories from the people who just have given up, amazing jobs to just go and make jam or, honey sommeliers. I mean, they have such, I came back and I said to my husband, I have found the answer to life. These people have joy. We have to give everything up and make honey.
And the pride. And it's so funny because we also, have a beer culture as everyone does now. But in upstate New York, there's particular kind of hops that are very historical. And you get talking to some of these brewers and you lose a half an hour and you better get going.
I have done podcasts with them. I've done so much about craft brewing and micro brewing as well, where they share the space with other people. Honestly, it's like going to the best party ever.
They collaborate. Yeah. You use my hops, I use you. We're going to produce this beer together and have a fun. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing,
isn't it? And what I love so much about it is it's the millennial generation. It's the sort of the 28 to 40, they are just going back to working with their hands, getting their hands dirty, feeling stuff again, waking up the senses, really loving taste, really understanding stories. They're filling the gaps that we created. It's our generation and the generation that's older than us who wanted everything fast and convenient, and it's just a small blip in our history. And I hope if we're not too late, it's that generation who's going to make it good again, because they are the true gourmands. They love taste. Everything for them is about pleasure.
And it's a whole body experience.
Yeah.
And it's different than saying, what would I like? Oh, I know, I'm going to buy a German sports car. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't give you the depth of experience and pleasure, I would argue.
Well, they haven't made it. You see, I think that a lot of the craft stuff is about the making it. It's about growing. It's about seeing things through. It's about literally slowing things down. And getting that enormous satisfaction from seeing the fruits of your labor.
That's exact. I mean, I'm a hardcore knitter, and these are conversations. Why am I spending $100 on the yarn where I can go and get a similar sweater at the market that somebody made in Guatemala?
Yeah.
Who knows how old they were? Whatever.
Don't get me started on fast fashion.
Okay. And the fact but there's something, and there's brain science we know working with our hands keeps us mentally healthy. We were evolved to do this.
Yes, that's right. That's absolutely it.
So much fun. Gilly, please tell our audience, where's the best place to find you? You are so prolific. You have so much great stuff. Where can they find out more about all of your projects?
Well, in one place, I'm gillysmith.com. That's Gilly with a G, Gilly Smith.com. But I'm not very good at updating my website. So everything is there, but if you've got half an hour to kind of search amongst everything, no, it is all there. Everything I've done is there. So that's the best thing to do. But Cookie the Books with Gilly Smith is the podcast where I speak to the food writers. Yeah, and there's, all the other podcasts are there.
Mm-hmm. You are one busy woman. and then you're doing what you love, so that's just the thing is, I only kind of came back into it in 2016 because I was focused on my children first. I was a stay-at-home mum until they were sort of 13, 14, and then I got a part-time job, but I was always home to pick them up from school. So it's only since they've left that I've gone crazy with all this stuff. Oh, gosh. I'm so grateful for all of your work and your awareness building. And I think, I know our audience is going to be delighted to learn more. I've been thrilled to listen to your podcast, and the energy and the excitement in your voice is absolutely contagious.
Oh, thanks so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Hey everyone, I wanted to tell you about a powerful new tool that supports your mental and emotional health in what are extremely trying times. And you may remember that I've been a psychotherapist for 30 years, and I'm always a little suspicious of products that claim to help us feel less anxious, depressed, or worried. But then I was introduced to a new kind of app called Cope Notes, and I have become a big fan. Cope Notes was developed by a guy who spent a lot of his life trying to figure out what might help support him through his own weekly psychotherapy sessions. Cope Notes is an app that gives you random texts through the day to break through some of the negative messages that might be repeating in your head. It's well researched and has been adopted by many mental health facilities. I highly recommend it. I think we can all use a little support right now. So check out copenotes.com/zestful. I will receive a small portion of those proceeds. And I'd love to hear your feedback about how it works for you. Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down, and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.